Yo, what is up, Bitcoin miners, Bitcoiners, Bitcoin miners, all of the people in the Bitcoin space, anybody who's watching this? Welcome to the Build a Mine podcast. I'm happy to have you here. I am Trevor Bello. I'm your host. I am the guy who is learning everything he can about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and doing it in a way that helps to educate our community, to help and grow and raise up the next generation of Bitcoiners and Bitcoin miners. So every time I have a conversation with somebody who's been in the active, who has been in the military and transitioned into civilian life, I always get this very interesting perspective, this dichotomy between life in the military to how that transposes into civilian life and what they're doing is just very interesting to me. It's exciting to talk to these people and see, what they did in the military and how those experiences have kind of led them to doing what they're doing in life today. And so we're going to be bringing on Sean Grant. Sean is a former U.S. Marine who joined the Marine Corps straight out of high school, choosing to serve in the intelligence field while serving as a geospatial intelligence analyst. He completed 2 tours during our Operation Iraqi Freedom. So we're very grateful for Sean's service. I have a lot of respect for the men and women who serve our country. While I have interesting opinions about our government, I am very deeply grateful and respectful to the men and women of service in this country. So, mad respect for Sean and for everything that he's done for this country and for, his brothers and sisters who have also done a lot to serve our nation. Sean is driven by a passion to serve the Bitcoin community by creating products that blend design excellence with practical functionality. His work with IxTech Solutions, or IxTech, reflects a commitment to solving real problems for miners and enthusiasts, enabling them to optimize their operations while staying true to Bitcoin's ethos of innovation and decentralization. So something I didn't mention is that when Sean exited military life, he entered the civilian world, and he decided that him and his brother were going to build a business, and that business is IxTech. What they are doing is 3D printing different types of stands, backpacks for miners. You can put little power supplies in these backpacks. They're printing filters and all kinds of other things that are helping Bitcoin miners, with their efficiency and just their projects as well. I'm not quite sure if he takes orders for custom prints or not, but maybe we'll ask him and see what happens. But one thing that they are working on that I'm really excited about is these white PCBs for the BitAxes. You can see my white paper in the back there, or my white paper edition BitAxe Supra. That is from IxTech's. And it's a beautiful design. It's something that is just really exciting. People come into my studio, not often, but sometimes, and they ask me like, what is that? And it's really cool to be able to show them this really clean, pristine looking BitAxe, and then pull the white paper off and say, hey, read this. This is super exciting. So that's something that they've been working on. And one thing that's really neat about this open source community behind the BitAxe is anybody can take it, they can build it, and they can kind of start to change and iterate and do something different with it. And I think that what Sean and his brother have done at IxTech is absolutely incredible, because they have kind of changed the look of it and made it really clean, really classy. It's almost elegant, really it is. So I'm excited to get into this conversation today. Before I get into the conversation, I have a couple things that I want to tell you. So first and foremost, Bitcoin Mining World is doing a 1-day virtual event. So if you go to the link at the bottom of your screen or just in the show notes, you can sign up. It's $21 for this Bitcoin Mining World virtual conference. We're going to be talking with all kinds of builders, developers, mining operators to really get the feel of how Bitcoin mining works. You're going to learn a lot of things from this event. It's going to be very high signal. A lot of really, really good presenters are going to be there. People like Bob Burnett, David Branscombe. We're going to get either Mark or Bitcoin Mechanic. We're not quite sure who's going to be there, but Ocean's going to be there. We're going to get Epic blockchain technologies there as well. A lot of really, really great people in the space who are doing really cool things. I'm especially excited to have Bob come on. I love Bob and everything that he's doing. He is such a great storyteller and really has a lot of wisdom when it comes to technology, innovation, and Bitcoin. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I highly recommend all of you go to the link at the bottom of your screen, sign up for that conference, and join us on March 11th. It's an entire day full of Bitcoin mining talk. So definitely do that. The next thing is I am going to be in Juneau on July 4th through the 6th for Bitcoin Alaska. This is an event that will be helping to shape the narrative around Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining in Alaska. There's a lot of natural resources, energy resources in Alaska, and there's a lot of underserved communities as well. And there's this perfect connection between Bitcoin and the community and the energy that is in Alaska. And if somebody can start to help explain to the communities, to the people in office there, if they can explain, how this symbiotic relationship between Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining with the energy resources can help to empower these communities. If someone can explain that through this conference and help these people in office understand and the communities understand, I think that a lot of these communities will be better off. And so I'm really looking forward to going up there and helping out with that conference. I will leave a link in the show notes to that conference as well. If you want to get out to Alaska, it's a beautiful place. We're going to go see the glacier up in Juneau as well. I highly recommend. I lived there for about 13 years when I was a kid. I lived in Ketchikan. It was a beautiful place, really great, amazing sights to see. So, have a vacation this summer, come up to Alaska, come to Bitcoin Alaska, and, hang out with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. And the last and final thing before we get into our podcast today is I want to tell you about the Mastermind Club.
Join the Mastermind Club, a weekly gathering of Bitcoin miners sharing insights to help you optimize or build your mining business. Our community fosters open discussion and collaboration, connecting you with experts who can help you overcome challenges and find solutions faster. Every other week, we host the Mastermind Deep Dive, where industry leaders delve into the financial, operational, and optimization hurdles faced by miners like you. Brought to you by Bitcoin Mining World.
All right. Real quick, where'd it go? Right there. Go to the link or the QR code, scan the QR code at the bottom of your screen, join the Mastermind community. It's a great community to be in. It's been pivotal to my journey into learning how Bitcoin mining works. And enough with all of that. Let's get into the podcast. Sean, welcome to the Build a Mine podcast. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to have you here, man. Like, as I said in the intro, just want to, on air one more time, say I'm super grateful for, all of the things that you have done, that your brothers and sisters have done for this nation, for this country. I'm sure you hear it a lot, but, I have a lot of respect for the men and women who serve for the freedoms and the values that we believe in here in the United States. So just wanted to get that out of the way. Deeply grateful for you, man. I'm super excited to get into this conversation. Let's just start this off. Tell us your rabbit hole story, man. How'd you get into Bitcoin? And then we'll kind of, start also with your military career.
No problem. Yeah. Thanks again for the support. Right. I think that's really helpful for those of us who got out and, are questioning about what decisions have been made and what we were a part of. But hearing people say, thank you for your service, it really means, we thank you for your support in that. So, yeah. So my rabbit hole story, we kind of had the good intro there. I mean, I joined the Marines right out of high school. I mean, for me, I've always been a lover of technology, really embraced it. Decided, what do I do? What am I doing after high school? Right. So I was supposed to actually go to college in Utah. Got a partial scholarship, wasn't really feeling it. And so I was like, I need something different with my life. I need to do something different. So, my dad was in the military, his brothers, my grandfather also was. So it was kind of a pseudo tradition in the family. My older brother went off to school in Arizona. And I decided, well, you know what? How about I look at this military thing, right? I'll go take the ASVAB, the vocational test, to see what I'd score, see what I'd be good at. And took the test, scored pretty high on it, and they're like, well, you can pretty much do what you want. So, how about you take a look? So look at the services. I didn't want to go on any ships, so Navy was out. Army never really caught my interest at all. It was really down to the Air Force and Marines. And, talked to the Air Force. We had an Air Force base where I grew up in Las Vegas. We'd go there every so often. It just didn't really seem like it was going to be that challenging. It was like, okay, yeah, you're in the Air Force. It's just, civilians with a nice suit kind of thing. You're kind of in the military. And when I talked to the Marine Corps recruiters, like, well, we've got the longest and hardest boot camp. We're the smallest of any of the forces out there. It's a real tough. And, one thing you'll notice about the Marines is that when you drive around, you'll see Marine Corps flags everywhere. You'll see people with Marine Corps tattoos, jackets, T-shirts. People are very proud to be Marines. And that's one of the things that they pride themselves on. I was like, yep, I need this. I need this to really give me direction in my life. So enlisted, like you said, right out of high school. Went to boot camp, came out. Like I said, I chose the intelligence field because, while it was cool to think about, maybe I could shoot machine guns, blow some stuff up, that'd be fun to do. I was also thinking sort of more longer term. If I only did my 4 or 5 years, what would I want to do when I got out? How could I use those skills to further, And like I said, it kind of goes back to my love of technology. So I tried to figure out something that was really in my realm, computers, technology, that kind of stuff. And so signed up for the intelligence field and became a geospatial intelligence analyst. And so for those who don't know, the O261 field, it's basically combining data and analytics with a spatial element to it to help, derive products, do analysis, help better support the warfighter, warfighting plans, and things like that. So, I did that for 5 years. I did my 2 tours with Operation Iraqi Freedom, one in 2002 as part of the Advon before the invasion, and then the second one in 2004 for the second push we had, and we were in Ramadi, Iraq. I tell people it was the most exciting and scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Boot camp was tough. Yeah, but it's boot camp. It's going to suck. You just embrace the suck. Being deployed is just a whole different thing, right? You train, and you never really think that it's going to, it didn't happen, right? Like we hadn't gotten in any wars, small conflicts here and there, but Iraq was a big invasion, right? That was a big thing for us. So did my 5 years. Thankfully, our battalion was very lucky. We didn't lose anybody. Nobody was severely injured at the time that I was there. So we all made it back, and I decided, all right, my time's up. I did what I wanted to do. Time to move on to the next chapter of my life. And that's where the challenge came, like you mentioned. Transitioning out of the military is definitely hard. You're used to that structure, especially being deployed. You have to stick to your structure, stick to your training, to trust your instincts out there, and you have a different way of interacting with people in the military, especially in the Marine Corps, than you do in the civilian world, right? Some of the Marines will know, like, you can't just go around calling everybody shitbags, right, and yelling at them. So the getting out's hard. Transitioning is hard, right? And thankfully, the military and there's other services out there that can help folks too that are struggling with that. So got into the tech industry sort of naturally, right? I went to the company that was making our software. Started on the lower end, DBA, just really learning the hardcore stuff. Started doing more computer programming, worked my way up to be a product manager. Bounced around to a couple different startups after that in the LA area, drone space, worked back with the Marines, which was great. I got to go on base, teach Marines how to use drones and use them for, reconnaissance missions, short range reconnaissance, which was really fun. Then around, 2015, I think it was when I first started hearing about Bitcoin. A friend of mine was talking about it. Hey, they had this thing called the Silk Road. You can go out and buy illegal stuff with this made up currency called Bitcoin. Like, they made their own digital currency, internet money for nerds. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Whatever. It's, I'm not going to pay attention to that. Fast forward 2017, during that bull run there, it kind of started coming around more in the mainstream media, right? Bitcoin's price was pumping. I think it was 4,000. I checked right. And I was like, okay, let me look back into this thing. Went ahead, got a Coinbase account, was like, oh, this is sort of like digital gold, digital, and then you had Ethereum, which is digital silver, and Litecoin, digital bronze. Like, I'll get some of these little things, put some money into it, and I'll just let them sit and do their thing. And then, of course, the bull run went down, Bitcoin's price crashed. I was like, all right, well, that was failed. That was stupid. Those didn't go anywhere. Just forget about it. Move on. So totally forgot about it. Fast forward now, 2020, right? Everyone's at home. COVID hits. You have this app called Clubhouse came out. Got an invite to that. And all of a sudden on my feed, hey, Bitcoin room. What is Bitcoin? Let's talk about Bitcoin. How is Bitcoin going to the moon? It's like, all right, well, let me go into one of these and just see what these people are talking about, right? So I get into one of the rooms, and people started talking about it, got into another room, didn't really understand it. And then Andreas Antonopoulos popped up in one of the rooms and just started talking, just had a conversation really about what it is. And he was able to really break it down and give me a good sense. Okay, wait a minute. This is more than just some made up stuff on the internet that people were using to buy other things, or, just for, number go up. So then I started sitting into more rooms. You had people like American Hodl basically laying it out for folks on why you should buy it and get your 6.125 Bitcoin. You had people like Bitcoin Tina yelling at everybody. Then you had one of the things, like I said, going back to the technology aspect, I really wanted to dig into it more. So I hopped in some of those rooms as well. People like D++ telling you and breaking it down from a technology perspective, what it is, how you can use it. Hey, let's get together and start building things on our own. And that's when it started really starting to click for me. Read the white paper, started going down the rabbit hole, watched a lot of videos on YouTube, read a lot more materials, the Bitcoin Standard, a bunch of other books, and really started to, wow, there's something there, right? There's this spark that was created by this white paper that is revolutionizing everything. I know we use that term a lot, but I mean, it is a revolution in the true sense. And so, for me, it's about getting the hands on, really digging into it. All right, well, how about, it talks about these nodes, like these record all the transactions, right? I can't see all the transactions in my bank. How am I able to do this with the Bitcoin network? All right, well, how about I just build my own damn node, right? So went online, followed the folks on Clubhouse room, hopped over to Telegram and the PlebNet group. Hey, get a Raspberry Pi. All right, got that. Get your SSD. Got that. All right. Download the Umbrel. Get that installed. Okay. Now download the blockchain. Oh, wow. Took a day and a half or whatever it was, and then it was sitting there syncing. And to see it, all the transactions syncing was just, it was a big moment. It was like a click right there. Like, that's people transacting right now all across the world, right? In real time, sending and receiving, value without the need of any sort of middleman, banks, third parties, credit card companies to hold it, wait 30 days or anything. It's being sent and settled. I think that to me was like a really, really big moment that kind of really set it into place. And then, all right, well, what about started learning more about it? Different layers, right? Now you have layer 2 solutions. You have the Lightning Network. Okay, well, let's set up some channels instead of there. How does that work? Works like an abacus and does this, does that. And it was quite amazing setting that up too. Now you can send it even faster for even cheaper, right? And then you start looking at the actual network. Part of the PlebNet group, we hit over 1,000 people just setting up nodes and making channels to each other and really densified. And it was really amazing for me to just see that. And that's was just transformational for me. That's when I really got into it. Like, all right, this is the thing. Now, yes, I dabbled in the altcoin, the shitcoin casino a little bit. Tried the other blockchains, right? Okay, well, this one's going to be the next Bitcoin. Well, how about Ethereum? It does this, and that. Sure, some of them are fast. When you only have 10 people using it, it's going to be fast. Not when you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people across the world using it. Bitcoin's still up and running, right? There are no circuit breakers on it. There are no foundations or people controlling it. And as you start digging deeper, you get past sort of the marketing, like it has utility and what's its tokenomics, right? You really dig into it, and it's just a bunch of people controlling it, and they just forked to somebody else's repo and started their own thing, called it something cool, and has some flashy site or terms or whatnot, and have their shills all over Clubhouse and whatnot pushing it. And so, sort of came back to full circle, like, all right, I'm not gonna mess with those anymore. I'm just gonna stick to Bitcoin only. And that's kind of how IxTech sort of came into be. So my brother ended up getting a 3D printer. we started doing GPU mining because at the time we can't, obviously do mining with Bitcoin. So we're like, all right, we'll start getting into this mining thing. I want to check this next sort of evolution of the Bitcoin learning, right? To learn from the nodes. Okay, the nodes and the transactions, verify it. Now you have the mining aspect. So, we were building parts for a GPU miner, some clips here, some GPU hangers, that kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, I want to get an ASIC. Let's just go ahead and do it. Take some extra of the money I've got saved up. Let's just get an ASIC. I really want to get into this even more. See what it's about. Like, what can I do with this ASIC? Then I started getting into the home mining groups. Like, there's a whole sub community out there within the Bitcoin community that is, taking these ASICs and mining it. They're not big mining farms with tens of thousands of machines. They're just, average people that want to do the same thing, learn about Bitcoin, mine a couple Bitcoin, and get that set up. And so, it's one of those things that's, the problems other people are running into, we ran into ourselves. And we're like, my product mindset was like, oh, how can I solve this problem? There's got to be a way to fix this or make this better, make it more efficient. And so that's how, we're like, me and my brother, like, all right, well, a good example, like you mentioned, was like the backpacks, for example. So I have one in the back right here. I've got my S9. Yeah, you got your custom one. And yes,
right here.
Yep, there you go. Right. So that's our our backpacks that hold the APW3 power supplies on your S9. Like most people, I think most of us all have S9s. We use solid machine, great machine to have real workhorse. That's what we learned off of, right? So we have that, but the power supply just sits off to the side. And I was like, I don't want to use budgie cord designs. I was like, why can't I just make like a little thing, slides into the grooves that are already there, so I can just lift this thing up and move it without having to get my bungee cords and ties. And I was like, well, we got that case. I was like, let's make this thing look better, right? I think that was our big thing. Like, even with our back when we started making, the PCIe clips and the GPU hangers, is the ones we found out there were just plain black. It's like, well, I want to show my shit off, right? I want to make it look nice. I want to match it to my colors, my styling, my design preferences. So we had different ones, right? We had different colors, different, shiny, non-shiny. We had multicolor transition ones. We had color changing depending upon the temperature. So the hotter it got, different colors changed. So, we really started to look into that. And, once again, once I got into the whole mining groups, it just went down the rabbit hole again on mining and trying to understand how it works. And, it led to me becoming, with a bunch of my classmates that I was doing at the time, like, hey, I became the Bitcoin guy. And they're like, hey, tell me how this thing works, right? Well, I was able to give a couple different presentations to a bunch of different folks and explain to them how it worked, and just started orange pilling everybody. And I just became like the local orange pillar. And it was great. I mean, that was once I got that miner up and running, I saw that, the mining statistics, what my hash rate was. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I'm part of the network. Like, I'm just not somebody who's a consumer of something. I'm helping the network. I'm strengthening. I got my node up and running, right? I've got lightning channels set up. Now I've got my miner set up. I'm furthering the idea that Satoshi had of decentralized distributed system, a cash system that everybody can use, that's not beholden to one company or organization. And that's those moments were really really foundational, were really like eye-opening to me. And I got my brother involved and started explaining it to him, and and it started clicking for him. Like, like this is cool. We can be a part of this community. How can we help this community out even more? And for us, it's never been about how much money can we squeeze from it. Let's get the latest and greatest, throw it out there. Like, we really want to be intentional on how we can, help the open source community, help Bitcoin, either take products, improve them, give up our ideas, contribute back, even offer our services as best we can with our knowledge to help further this movement, right? To get more and more people on board. I mean, it's been an amazing journey, right? And we've been focusing. The company has grown. We started a couple years ago, like I said, focusing on GPU mining, slowly working out the ASIC little parts here and there, like the backpack there, and we have air filters, right? That was another thing. I kept getting stuff inside mine. I have to clean out my miner. I was like, can I just put an air filter on this? Well, there were no 8-inch air filters because we were using the Infinity AC inlines with the Nord boards. And it's like, all right, well, now we just design one, just print one out, get some reusable material that, and make it practical for users, right? Make it look good, make it work well, and make it practical for everybody, right? And that's been the big thing with a lot of the products. And so, we've had those different products out there. Like I said, the filters, we've got the backpacks, we've got our own shrouds as well that you can use to help optimize your miners. And then, sort of July of last year, started hearing about these things called the bid axes. It's like, well, the biggest problem obviously was the barrier to entry for people for mining, right? To get a miner, it's expensive. At the time of COVID, these things were hitting, like you can get an S19 for, it was 10 grand. I saw Boom Rex at the time, right? And most of these miners are 220. So you're not going to be able to run this up your standard outlet. A lot of people don't have an extra 220 outlet at home, plus the extra electricity costs. So that's when, Scott and those folks over there came up with, well, let's just take one chip off the board. Let's see if we can just mine with that one chip. And so that started our sort of initial journey into the bid axes, into that mining piece. And so, we were just being a reseller. We'd buy them from our good friends over at Solo Satoshi. They were really helpful in getting us started on that avenue. And then we're like, well, we're going to do some, once again, it goes back to ours. Is there ways we can maybe improve upon the design or add our own custom design flair to it? So we're like, well, why don't we just build them ourselves? Right? Why don't we just take on this part ourselves and not have to rely on, another manufacturer? And so we looked at that. Me and my brother were like, all right, well, we've got some soldering experience, some electrical experience. Maybe we'll take a look at this. Same time, another one of our friends was interested in the business. He, we'd been going for a while, been selling a lot more, and he wanted to get involved. And he had a lot of good experience doing electronics and soldering and building electronic components. We're like, hey, perfect. Check these things out, right? Think you could build one of these things, build it by hand. And so we just started on that journey next, right? So that's been, I guess, kind of going all the way back here. That's sort of was the initial rabbit hole that I went down, right? Starting right when I got out of the Marines and getting into Bitcoin 2015, first hearing about it, and then just really jumping in the rabbit hole in the past couple of years.
Yeah, what an incredible story, man. Like, I thank you for highlighting that. It's interesting to me because everybody kind of comes into Bitcoin from a different perspective, and then you find your natural fit. There's this, perfect symbiotic relationship between something that you've already done and what you're now doing. And I see this a lot in Bitcoin because Bitcoin is so encompassing. There's so many different moving pieces. And you particularly have a propensity for technology. This is something that you did in your military career, and it kind of overlays perfectly for what you're now doing in Bitcoin. So I just kind of want to ask you, how has your military experience shaped your approach to the business and the product design at IxTech?
Yeah, good question. One of the big things, especially in the Marine Corps, is all about small unit leadership, right? You have our non-commissioned officers, you have your corporals that are leading, even as a Lance Corporal in our unit. I had to lead a team when I was in Iraq. I was working the night shift and had 3 other Marines underneath me, and I was the only one taking and working with all the officers and getting orders and communicating with the units. So that's one of the big things that they help build upon with all the different schools and leadership training that you have, is to be a leader, be a good leader, right? You may not have all the answers, but you'll be able to provide that leadership to the people. Also about being decisive. I think that's been one of the big things that has helped our company, is not sort of paralysis by analysis and wish-wash. We should do this. Let's try this. Let's go this direction. Let's set out a vision. What are we going to do? Who are we? What are we doing? And what products do we want to support? Right. So sort of a combination of the leadership and my experience in the Marines, coupled with, my product management experience in the tech industry and the startups, has really kind of formed together to help provide sort of that direction. It's great. Now that I've transitioned out, it's been a long time, 20 years or so, but still, like, there's that, once a Marine, always a Marine. And I talked with my brother, and he'd ask questions like, wait, what do we do? What about this? Like, all right, I'll just do this. I'll just make the decision, make the call. Here's the reasons why I think that we should go this direction, and let's go there and let's do that. And it's worked out pretty well for us. We've had some different paths we've gone down, but overall, we haven't gone too far down there, and we were just being measured and being smart about it. And that's been one of the big things, I think. being able to collaborate and work with other people is a big thing. I mean, I had to do that often when I was in the Marines, work with other units, try to understand what their needs are and help satisfy that, try to figure out what's going to help them. So, working with the folks within the BitX community on there in the OSW Discord, highly recommend if folks aren't in there, hop in there, get involved. Even if you have no skills to do anything, you can still get involved and help out somehow. Like, updating documentation, language translation, right? Little things like that can help. And so, going back, it's really about, like I said, identifying what the problems is. We have a saying in the Marines: improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's how it's got to be, right? In this fast-moving space of technology, you have to adopt that mentality, and that's also been a really good carryover from the military.
Yeah, something that I want to highlight is this open source development. When a lot of people think of open source, they're thinking of the software side of open source. That's kind of where the term comes from, is free and open source software. And while that is very much needed, Bitcoin is free and open source software. Other things in the space are free and open source, like the BitX itself. There is this whole other side of open source development that comes from the tinkerers, from the people like yourself who are building companies, building businesses from open source tech. And while, I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, I am someone who is trying to push the movement of the open source foundational principles that Bitcoin provides and that BitX provides, and like some of these other things that we have, Zach Baum's Loki board and those kinds of things forward. I am significantly contributing to the space. This podcast is helping people understand Bitcoin, helping people understand some of the projects that are in the Bitcoin space. And then you are over there developing products that are helping people, with their mining operations. You've got these solutions that are coming out that are making things more efficient, cleaner. I mean, let's go back to this filter, for example, this 8-inch inline filter that you developed. I mean, it's super simple, very straightforward, but it solved a problem that you had seen, something that you needed to solve. And this is something that everybody can really get on board. When I saw your filter, I knew that I had to get one. And then I didn't even think about it, but a couple months later, I have this filter. My baby was born at the time that I got the filter, so I didn't really do anything with it. But then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna integrate a home heater, a Bitcoin miner into my house. So I slapped a machine together, S19K Pro, threw an AC Infinity fan on there, and I was like, holy crap, I've got this filter, this MERV 3 HEPA filter. And what's great about it is now all of the air that is cycling through my house, going through my miner, is being filtered before it comes through. So I've got heated, filtered air. I think that it's solutions like these that are moving this open source development space in Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining forward. And it's just an incredible thing to see. So, I just kind of wanted to highlight that a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's been. Like, if you look at, it's the agile product development, right? Kaizen, like ways to improve upon an existing process. And that's kind of what we've done, not just in the products that we offer, but also in our processes as well. Filters are a great example. We first started making the filters. We spent a long time on the design of that. It wasn't just something we were just going to put out there and just like, here you go, with there. Like I said, we make sure that the products that we build not only are beautiful, they're high performance and they're practical, right? We made sure that the fit of the filter fits on shrouds, our shrouds, other people's shrouds that are out there. It fits on the AC inline fans and other fans that other users had been using. And then also the overall design of the structure of it, right? We wanted to have a strong structure that was rigid, but also, didn't hurt performance, right? Because that's the other thing we saw with these other filters out there that people have been using, is that it starts putting a strain that the machine has to work harder to get that air through. And we didn't want to have to worry about that. And then once we got that design, we're like, all right, well, it needs to be reusable. We can't just have this a one-time thing and then users throw it away. That's just not practical for users, right? Like, let's figure it out where they can put their own filter. We could provide replacement filters as well, but also the design. I mean, even just the cap on it, we've got the logo, but we've got like a fractal imprint on it with the sort of orange line and orange black, where it's just sort of very simple, but very clean. but really makes it stand out. Like if you want to show off your rig, like here you go, this thing looks great, right? So we've got a couple good reviews out there from that, and that's where it's been with us. It's even our processes, like even to build that, for example, it used to take, I think it was 13 hours to print one shroud on the one printer we had, and then we're like, that's just too low. Like we can't keep up with orders. Let's improve it. Let's figure out ways we can improve it. Okay, let's buy another machine. This other printer is supposedly a little bit faster. Let's go ahead and get that. Now we cut the time down to, I think it was 8 hours. Okay. Good improvement. Now we can start getting more. But there's always room to improve, right? There's always ways to make this better. Problem we always had, it was just too big to fit on like the bamboos, which are really fast and really nice and really great printers. Okay, let's make it modular. Let's print it in 2 different parts, and then we can put them back together and still maintain that rigidity, and we'll test that out. And then now we got it down to, I think, 3 or 4 hours. So that's just been a real big thing for us, is just how can we improve it, make it better and easier to work with or to use.
Yeah, and that is the literal embodiment of open source development. I think it's absolutely incredible. So I want to kind of move on to some of the problems that you're solving for in the small miners group. I don't want to say home miners, because it is home miners, heat reuse is home miners as well, but specifically like the BitAxe solution. BitAxe is something that it was kind of nascent when it first started. It was people like, oh, it's interesting, but it doesn't really have like a product fit. It doesn't really have a market right now. But then lo and behold, you had someone get a block in 2024 back in June. And when that happened, the BitAxe market just exploded. It absolutely exploded. I know that was when I got my BitAxe, because I was like, well, it can be done. Someone did it, so it can happen again. And so you see a lot of these different developments coming out. You've got these immersion BitAxes, you have hydro BitAxes, you've got people making cool desktop towers and water coolers and filters. Like it's crazy what's happening. And now you even have people deciding, okay, well, one chip's not enough. We still want the efficiency, this 50 watt to 150 watt efficiency. We want to do 4 chips, 8 chips. And we're seeing these crazy amounts of innovations and things that are coming out of the Bitcoin space. So what is IxTech doing in that scene? What are some of the innovations that you've been working on specifically, if you can share anything, other than just the production of the white edition of the gammas, which is absolutely incredible? But what are some of the things that you are doing to streamline processes and really help build out this open source development on BitAxe?
No, yeah. We've been trying to work on a lot of different things. Once again, go back to how we can improve things, right? So, we have not only the design part of it, right? How can we make these more, I would say, acceptable, but more ease of use for people, right? Some people may not even be involved. They may not even know what a Bitcoin wallet is. Like, how do I get a Bitcoin wallet or an address to even get this thing mining? Let alone, they have this device that they don't know what to do with or how to set it up or to set it somewhere, right? We want to make it simple and elegant so that you can showcase what this thing is, right? And we provide a walkthrough on our website. A lot of other folks have been trying to do this as well. Once again, try to implement practicality in this, right? So our stands, for example, like we've got our BitX stands, the black and the white one, and the color change. They provide a nice, simple, easy to use enclosure. You can put it in there. It doesn't affect performance, right? One of the things we always look at is how to make sure we either maintain or improve performance. But this, bottom of the pedestal slides off, and it's got 2 things in the back. You can now wall mount it, right? So very simple little things like that to help people. I want to showcase and put it up here. Also, on the performance of the BitAxes, right? We put a lot of time and effort into the different options when manufacturing the PCBs, working with the manufacturer to figure out what's going to be the best one for performance-wise, right? So, and then optimization on heat sinks and fans, optimizing of displays and so whatnot, like little practical things. Like we put a little, like on the white paper edition, people kept complaining about their displays falling off, right? So one thing that we did was, all right, we'll just make a little case around the display so it doesn't fall off, right? Very simple thing, but make it clean and elegant, as a way of a little quality of life improvement, right? So you don't have to worry about that falling out, loosened displays or whatnot. And then, like you said, people aren't satisfied with the single chips. You have these hash heads out there that just want to create more and more hash. And our mission has been trying to get as many of these things out so we can decentralize off these big pools. And so what we've been working on is a lot of these multi-chip miners, right? We've really been focusing on the NerdX line, which is an offshoot of the BitX. The big thing difference with those, if you're not familiar with those, they have a nice, beautiful, full color display on them that shows all the different mining screens, the Bitcoin price as well, and what your hash rate is. But they've also been really far along on the multi-chip miners. And so what we've been doing is working with the developers of those and testing those and getting those up. These are the ones like the QX++, for example, which has 4 of the BM1370 chips. That's 4 of the same chips that are in one single gamma, right? So take 4 gammas, put them together. You've got a nice, really powerful machine that, that we've been able to push up to almost 6 terahash at 75 watts, right? The innovation in there and things that we're trying to do is figure out what cooling solutions would work best for that. Let's get a air cooled and maybe even a water cooled solution. What's going to work the best at a good price point, and let us really push these devices, push them safely without frying them, but squeeze a little bit more terahash out of these things so that we can further get more hash off the main pools and get it into these single or into these desktop miners that people have, and also optimize on the the stands and whatnot. We'll still have our signature white PCBs that we're planning on always doing, but what's the next thing we can also work on, right? Working with the developers on the Octax Gamma, for example, what we call the Ocho, that's got 8 chips on it, right? 8 gammas, shoved together on a single board. That can produce up to 10 terahash. So now you're seeing these desktop, the open source miners starting to gain a lot more terahash out there, and a lot more people wanting to get more and more of those on there, right? We're really just trying to see what solutions that we have. One of the big things, like when we started building like the BitX hexes, for example, is let's get a bunch of different heat sinks and fans, test them out, what works, what doesn't work, report back to the community. Hey, we've got this fan. We use thermal right, low profile, AX90 that works great on the QX++. Here's the test results. Here's the 24-hour period. This is what works great for us. Or hey, we got this AIO. This works pretty well. We don't like the rigidity of the tube, so maybe we can try a different one, right? Or give feedbacks right back to the designers, like, hey, like the Octax, for example, we were talking with them the other day. Like, it's great that we got all these chips on there, but finding heat sinks that are plentiful out there with this footprint is really hard. Maybe we can adjust it to have a similar footprint like the QX++. Right, so really working with the community on giving our feedback from our knowledge, the way we iterate and how we do process improvement, what's going to make it easier for people out there to put their own cooling solutions, overclock this, or just find something that works for them and get that back out and get that feedback loop going. Like I said, the big thing for us has been focusing on these multi-chips. We've got our new production line. We've made a huge investment into new equipment that's going to allow us to a new pick and place machine, which will pick up the parts, place them on the board. We take that board, we put it in our little reflow oven. It just moves through like a pizza oven, drops it off. Now we can start cranking these things out. We just cranked out 40 in like 4 or 5 days the other day of the BitX single chips, right? So then it's just a matter of programming it for the multi-chip boards and then start pushing those through as well. And that's really been one of the big things that we've been trying to focus on, is getting the multi-chips out there, getting in a form factor that works for users, but also makes it performant as well.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are doing really cool things. I'm going to share the link to your guys' website down at the bottom of the screen right now, and I'll put it in the show notes as well. I, recommend that everybody, listening to this, go over to IxTech and just see some of the solutions that they have. I personally, I just have to say, like, I'm a huge fan of this BitX. I think the BitX is a great product. But what you guys, and I've said it a couple times, but like what you guys did with this white paper edition, man, this is clean. Like, for the people, looking or not watching, I'm showing the BitX right now. You can't see it if you're not watching the video, but this white edition PCB BitX Supra is just it's clean, it's elegant. There was a lot of design elements into this BitX to make it just a really powerful centerpiece for anybody who's interested in Bitcoin mining and the open source decentralization, censorship resistant nature of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. So, I mean, huge props to what you guys have done. I am super excited to see what you guys do in the future because of all of the elements that you guys are working with, like your mental state, where you guys are in your heads, and like how you're trying to attack these problems and come up with solutions. They work for you, but also work for the community. It's absolutely incredible. And this, you're not seeing a lot of production lines for these in the States or in like small businesses. Solo Satoshi is absolutely phenomenal with what they're doing with getting all of these products into people's hands all over the world. But one thing they are struggling with right now is the quantities of these products that are being ordered. Like, they are getting just inundated with order quantities and they can't keep up. And
Yep.
they have to outsource to another manufacturer. Whereas you're trying to bring this manufacturing in-house, which kind of opens up a lot of doors for you and pushes you forward just a little bit because you're manufacturing. And I think Solo Satoshi will start to realize that they need to work on some sort of better manufacturing situation so that they can get more of these products out, which we love this kind of competition that is working to get more hash rate in people's houses. You're doing same, but different kind of situation. So I think it's just something to highlight. You guys are doing some cool stuff, and I'm really excited to see that Ocho, because you said 10 terahash, man. 10 terahash at 75 watts. Is that what you said?
Oh, 10 so the Ocho will be 10 terahash at about 180 watts. The QX++ will be 6 terahash if you push it at about 75 watts.
Okay, so this is something interesting to me. When I first got into mining, you talked a little bit about the S9 at the very beginning. The S9 was 13 terahash at over 1,000 watts.
Yeah.
Okay, you're getting like out of the S9, I think it was 109 joules per terahash. It cost me probably like $40 a month to run my S9 versus this 10 terahash, much smaller miner. I mean, you've got a S9 beefy, heavy thing versus this Ocho, which is probably, yay big. And it's literally it's a 10 steps further, maybe even more than that. That is an incredible innovation that is coming out. Do you know what the price range on the Ocho is, or are you still trying to work on that?
Still trying to work on that. So the big thing, like I said, is going to be going back to like fans and heat sinks, and figuring out what's going to work best for that, and that's going to help determine the price point. I don't know at this point right now. I mean, anywhere between 600 to 800, I would suspect. I just don't know right now what it's going to be. We had to put a price up on Shopify, so I just put it up there for now. But like I said, also it depends on the cost of chips, right? So kind of what you were saying, one of the big things, like in my product management life as well as in the Marines, is how to de-risk a situation, right? Where are we going to be dependent on somebody else, and what happens if that dependency fails, right? And this great example of this happened when we were putting out our white papers. We were building all our white papers. We were building them with our V1 of the production line, and we placed an order for chips from a supplier. Order never got fulfilled. Right? They ended up getting backlogged, and there was no comms or anything. And I just figured out a way. I was like, all right, well, we can't get chips, so we can't build BitXs anymore. How do we de-risk this? Well, we can try to order from Alibaba, AliExpress. That's going to take a while, and even then, the ones we got from there were of questionable quality. We just had a lot of issues with getting those working properly, and it took a lot of time and effort to get them working. I was like, well, the only other option is if we just buy boards and desolder ourselves, because that's what our supplier here in NA was doing. It's like, all right, well, what's it going to take to do that, right? Improvise, adapt, overcome, right? So, all right, well, we got to adapt. We got to figure out how we're going to get chips, right? So once again, reached out to our good friends over there at Altair. They've got boards readily available if you want to purchase them. And we ended up purchasing a couple boards. Chris, head of manufacturing, is like, all right, well, I'll just go get a a hot grill or whatnot. That way I can figure out how to desolder these, and we'll test it out on one of our extra boards we had from one of our other miners. Tested it out. All right, we're able to pull the chips off. How do they work? They work perfect. We just clean them up a little bit. Okay, now, boom, we just de-risk the situation. Now we just get boards, we desolder them ourselves, and now we have a good supply of chips, right? We can get the S21XP boards. That's 91 1370 chips. That's able to supply runs of Gammas, QX Plus, and Ochos. Right, so that's really what it's been, trying to figure out how to de-risk this situation here with that. So yeah.
Yeah. Something that I wanna talk about is this move that is happening again in the BitX space. Primarily, you talk about risk. Primarily something that we've seen is that we are heavily reliant on these Bitmain chips. Now, something that is coming out is we're starting to see some new happenings, and I don't know when the Gamma Turbo is going to be coming out, but this one is not built with the Bitmain chips. It's actually built with Intel chips. So can you talk a little bit about that? What's it going to look like from a price standpoint, from a production standpoint, when you can get these rolled chips? I guess maybe that's not the right term, but these chips that you can put into your assembly line and start
Yeah.
building them that way. Can you just touch a little bit on that?
Yeah. I have some knowledge on the GT. So yeah, it's the next evolution of the Gamma, right? It's got the 2 chips running on it right now. They don't have a working version. I think they do. They kind of do. There's some prototype boards out there, but yeah, the big thing with the BitX community has been de-risking our chip supply, right? We've been really dependent on Bitmain, like you said, but only that, there's no, things are undocumented, and we have to sort of discover things and hack and get inside these chips to figure out how can we pull the temperatures off them? How can we ensure that we're getting the right hash rates and that kind of thing? And how do we get the right pins set up so that we can solder them on the boards? What's that pin setup? What's that configuration? And there's multiple different varieties of chips out there. And yeah, that's just the Bitmain. They didn't, they were looking at WhatsMiner chips as well, but yeah, the big thing is going to be moving away and getting to these Intel chips. And supposedly there's going to be a lot. I think the 256 Foundation got I think it's the Intel chips that they got, but there's like millions of chips that they're able to access to, which will be great. Don't have much information on them right now as far as their hash rate or what they're comparable to, a 68 or a 70. But that's going to really help out this community, really grow and really de-risk that situation, right? I mean, getting chips right now at a reasonable price, for people who just want to build onesies and twosies, it's hard. Like they're paying 50, 60 bucks just for one chip, right? And some of these don't have the capability like we do to desolder an entire board. Like, even if they bought the S21 Pro boards, that's still 65 chips at, 1,500 bucks, right? They're not going to, they don't have that money to just to get one chip. They're not going to desolder to get 65, right? And so really looking forward to this development. Yeah, like I said, it's the new one that's coming out, the double chip variant. You'll be able to see some good performance. And one of the cool things, right? Open source, iterate, and improve, right? So they've taken a lot of the lessons learned from the BitX Gammas and Supras, and from the multi-chips, and try to push that together into this GT. So you'll see instead of a 4-layer board, for example, it's got 6 layers, right? So then now it's able to better dissipate heat. You can use higher copper pores inside of it as well. And they're making other improvements on there, relocating some of the components in the back, making it a bit easier to access things like the BAT port, which is on top, so you can go third-party displays. And they're going with a different power connector as well instead of using the barrel plug from the one I saw. So a lot of good innovation and lessons learned going back into this. And the big thing is going to be those chips, like you mentioned. If we can get off the Bitmain and be reliant on them, then that's going to really help us scale out. As long as there's also a supply of that, right? So don't get me wrong, when the GT comes out, there's still going to be people buying Gammas. There's still people building and buying Supers. I mean, we'll be doing another run of the Super white papers. And just like, with Solo, we can't keep these things in stock. The demand is drastically outweighing supply. And it's just and that's why we invested in this new production line to really try to scale that out. And so the cool thing about that, it's pretty a flexible thing. So if it's a 4-chip, an 8-chip, a 12-chip like the Eco Miner, or if it's 2-chip like the GT, right? Manufacturers need to be, adaptable to that, whatever the latest and greatest is coming out, and get that out to the people.
Yeah, it's really cool what innovations are coming, and I'm really excited to see, because right now, I mean, the price point for most plebs is already starting to get a little out of hand. I mean, the 4 chip and the 8 chip. I mean, it's hard for a lot of people to come
Yeah.
up with five, six, $700 for a miner. That's why the S19 has been out of reach for most people. It's why the S21 is out of reach for most people. And so what I'm really excited to see is for the barrier of entry to come down a lot further, because we have the spooled chips, because you have the
Yeah.
ability to process these devices for faster and for cheaper. You know, when you can reduce the cost of that chip from $50 a chip to, let's say, 50%, $25 a chip, and you're putting 4 or 5 on there, 4 to 8, whatever it is, you can drastically reduce the cost of production, which, any good company reduces the cost of production, then they reduce the price to
Yeah.
purchase. So that is something that I am really excited to see. I know that, the price of these bit axes has already come down significantly from when they first started
Yeah.
showing up. I mean, I was hearing stories of $300, $400
Yeah.
single chip bit axes. So that's wild, because now we have bit axe gamma. It's like 185, like 200, depending on whether you get the white paper edition or whatnot. So it'll be really, really significant for the community to be able to get much cheaper iterations of these different BitAxe variants. One of the last things I want to kind of talk about is I really like to get my guests' opinion, thoughts on the future of Bitcoin mining. We are a Bitcoin mining podcast. We're focused on innovations and building and trying to decipher these ideas behind Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. And I just kind of want to hear your take on where you see Bitcoin mining going. What are some of the innovations that you think are going to happen in the future? And it can be related to industrial mining. It can be related to home mining or heat reuse. Yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, starting off on the industrial side, right? You're still going to have companies and expanding their existing footprints, new companies coming up and getting in on this, right? Bitcoin's not going away. It cracked 100K. It's still going. It went from, internet money for nerds to, illegitimate asset to now it's a legitimate asset. It's in ETFs, right? You have companies putting it on their spreadsheet. So it's here and it's becoming mainstream. And you'll see a lot more retail getting involved too. So there's always going to be a need for mining, right? I mean, if you look at the hash rate that's on, it just keeps going up. I mean, what are we at, zettahash now or something like that? Something
Yeah,
ridiculous, the amount of hash
getting
rates on the
close.
network. Yeah, it's just crazy to see. And it's going to continue, right? The one cool thing you see, obviously, great sort of example of sort of free market and competition, right? There's been dominated by Bitmain and then WhatsMiner, right? Now you've got other companies, Block coming out with their MDK, their development kits coming out with chips. Intel had theirs. I think you're going to start seeing more development of that coming out. How that translates with the desktop or the home miners, right? You're still seeing innovations happening in that space, right? You mentioned Zach's Pivotal PebTech, another great resource for folks trying to do home mining. You'll have his Nord boards that control the fans. You'll have the Loki kits, so you can take one of these hash boards and start mining on that. You can get 35 or even Altair's new version coming out, 100 terahash for home, right? That's incredible. What you're able to do. It's sort of bridging that gap. Like, okay, I got my BitAxe, I've got a little bit more money. Maybe I want to step up to the next level and get an actual ASIC, mess around with the Loki kit, or buy a pre-built kit from Altair or from SetStack and Pleb, their stealth miner, and you can get these systems at home. You see more innovation like the CryoBlock. Those guys out there are being able to help further make these miners more efficient, cool them better, get more hash rate out of it, less power consumption, right? More Bitcoin mined at that point. So I think you're just going to still see more innovations like that, ways to optimize. You're going to see more, in my opinion, you're going to see more companies coming out supporting this and building other, accessories and things like that to help further increase efficiencies, and also, chips and chip manufacturers. We'll see how that space turns out. Like you said, the GT, we're going away. We're going to be going away from Bitmain, and it's, the future sort of unforeseen at this point to see how that's going to work and what these chips capabilities are, and if it's going to be take one step back in order to make 2 steps forward. I think that's definitely something that will definitely be needed inside of here. It's just there's innovation just never stops in this space. I mean, I'm in the home mining wizards group on Telegram, the Loki group, and you're just seeing creative ways people are trying to optimize these and get more hash out, or do this. How about try this thing out? Or, even on the bidax space, right? Somebody posted the other day, even just squeezing just 2 degrees off of on your bidax, right, is going to help the temperatures a little bit more hash, right? So are you able to put a little attachment on your fan to help optimize airflow in? Or like in our case, we're going to be upgrading all the heat sinks and the fans on all of our bit axes. How can we find the best one for performance and whatnot? And that's what it's going to be about, whether it's custom solutions like you have with Duncan over there with the bitch and sink heat sink, where they just made their own custom heat sink, they do their own research, found that what works best with their setups, and are offering that out there, and not relying on Chinese ones or whatnot ones that are out there, but these are things that are optimized for that product and not just repurposed for that product. I think that's one of the big things that you're going to be seeing.
I couldn't agree with you more, Sean. I think that it's incredible. One of the things that gets me so excited about Bitcoin is this whole the values and the ethos of Bitcoin are overlaid on top of a lot of what these, I want to call them maxis, Bitcoin maxis are doing. We are building things, products, lines, companies, like businesses around that ethos, like literally centered off that ethos. And it's really cool to see. I came into Bitcoin about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years at this point, when I fully dove in, and I have seen nothing but open community, people who are excited about what we're building, people who are willing to have conversations with you, talk about their products, talk about their developments, talk about their solutions and their issues, so that they can help give you a leg up. And that is one thing that you don't see in a lot of communities. You don't see this open source community driven effort, and I'm really excited to see where we go in the next couple of years. And I'm honestly, I'm very grateful to be a part of this community.
100%. That was one of the cool things that struck me about Bitcoin, especially getting out of the Marines. Like in the Marines, you form a brotherhood. You have really tight knit. I mean, I still hang out with a bunch of the Marines I served with, 20 years ago. Actually, last year in July, went out to California, and a bunch of us just hung out and just like good old times kind of thing. And you really develop this tight sense, this sense of community. Now, that was one of the nice things about coming into Bitcoin and being like, hey, I'm new here. I don't know what I'm doing. And there's a bunch of people that are welcoming you in. Yes, okay, you dabble with shitcoins, that's fine, but you're interested. You're here to learn, right? And that's the first step for folks to do. They're really wanting to get involved, whether it's home mining or just getting an understanding of how Bitcoin is. Make that first step. Reach out to somebody. Get join these meetups, right? Every city's, they're popping up everywhere, right? I mean, here locally in Pittsburgh, and we've got meetups that are happening every month as well. Like, and I know a couple of the great other folks out there are starting their own meetups, and especially for veterans too, was another good opportunity to connect with other Bitcoin veterans. There's a group, Bitcoin Veterans, another great group. Hop on with them and get involved. I know that there's I'm in with those guys there, and those folks, they're great. And, it's just good to have that sense of not only deal with Bitcoin, but you're also in the military, so it kind of gets those military people back reconnected with some more familiarity, more folks inside there. And, like you said, the Bitcoin community is large, and there's even smaller communities out there, right? There's the home mining community, open source community. There's, folks doing all kinds of innovation on this. If you want to be development on building layer twos or integrating or working with companies like Blockstream and building their next gen of layer solutions or next gen of hardware, right? You can build your own hardware out there too. So it's just amazing. That's one thing that's been great about this community. It's been very welcoming. Sure, you have the maxis, some toxic ones. Hey, that's how it is, right? You're going to talk shit, and there's going to be people out there. And it's funny and great to watch, and it's entertaining sometimes. But yeah, it's just been a great community from my experience.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Sean. So last thing before we wrap up is what does Bitcoin mean to you?
I know we use the term revolution a lot. To me, it's about empowerment. It's taking control, right? We give up a lot of control of our life to a lot of different things. Financial being one of them, right? I think that's a big risk. We talk about de-risking. It's a big risk in our lives. We have to use money to survive, right? To buy food, to pay for things for our kids, get them to schooling, or do whatever. And as we saw with the birth of Bitcoin after the financial crisis, I think that was a big awakening moment for a lot of people to be like, wow, this system can go down real fast and we'll be screwed, right? I mean, even then, you're hearing was last year a bunch of banks, Silicon Valley Bank, all these other banks just going up and under, right, and closing their doors, and you can't get your money, right? So this is money that you worked for, you've earned, and you put your faith in somebody else, and now it's that faith has been shaken, and there's no guarantee, right? There's no guarantee that they won't just take your money, and that they can, because they control it. And so for me, it's been about that empowerment. You become your own bank, right? You debank yourself, and you manage it. You run your own node, run your own miner, manage your own keys, right? Not your keys, not your coins. And it's a great sense. Like, some people feel it's too complicated. Like, it's too complicated for the average person, but average person's figured out how to use a cell phone, right? They figured out how to drive a car, right? There's other, they figured out the words to a song. They can memorize the words to a song. They can't memorize 24 words for the seed phrase, right? It's only complicated in their minds because they don't understand it fully, right? And it's going to take this community to really, really get out there like they've been doing and start educating people. Like I said, Clubhouse was, I think, brought on a huge amount of people. Everyone's stuck at home. What are we going to do? Listen to it. So for me, I mean, it's just amazing. It's empowering. When I make a Bitcoin transaction, like, I transact with a lot of companies that supply us with stuff. Solar Satoshi, we transacted in Bitcoin. Lightning Prints, they do all our stickers, right? We transact in Bitcoin, right? To send that money, to send that Bitcoin to those people, get the confirmation, see it on the blockchain. It's just, it's amazing. Like, to me, it's empowering. I sent that to that person. Nobody else touched it. Nobody else did anything with it. Everything's decentralized. It's distributed. It's verified. It's settled. Done. Moved on. Right. I don't have to worry about somebody coming in and taking my stuff, and just because their bank's not doing well, like, whatnot. So to me, it's the ultimate form of empowerment, right? It's you taking more control over your life and owning that piece about it. And as Bitcoin continues to be adopted, not in just small communities to countries, you're seeing more and more transactions happening, and it's going to become even more important for people to realize, like, all right, take the time, sit down and learn how to do this. Learn how to download an app, learn how wallets work. That's one of the big things. I've got a couple different hardware wallets that they said, like, during Clubhouse, get one, transfer money, destroy it, spend the money, right? Rather spend $100, destroy that, than rather lose, 5 Bitcoin, if that's what you've got, right? Take the time and invest in it, and invest in learning, right? You're never going to know everything there is about Bitcoin, but that's the beauty of it as well. You're always learning new things and new things that are happening. So empower yourself, take control, and learn about Bitcoin.
100%. I couldn't agree more with you, Sean. I think that is a great way to end off the show. Tell the audience where they can find you if they want to get a hold of you.
Yep, you can reach out to us. Go to our website. We got our contact information there. Email. We're also on X, IxTech Crypto, as well as we're on Nostr, right? So hop on there. We're on there. A few other platforms, but those are the main ways. Myself and my brother are the ones who really try to be very responsive on there. So if you email us, if you DM us on Twitter, we'll try to get back to you as best we can. We do custom orders and custom stuff. Now we got this new production line as well. We're going to look at trying to do wholesale as well for resellers. We've had a bunch of folks reach out. You said, like, hey, I can't keep demand up. I can't keep supply in. Demand's too high. Can you help us out? We're getting those numbers right now. We're going to look at doing that next as well to try to really help out these other folks in this community. So yeah, reach out. I'm willing to, if you've got any ideas or want to collaborate, let us know.
Awesome. I'll make sure everything gets put in the description of the video. Sean, one more time, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for showing up on the podcast today and sharing your story with us. I know that it was very enlightening for me, and I had fun talking with you today. Guys, this has been the Build a Mind podcast. If you have anything you want me to, look into, if you have projects that you want me to talk about, you have people that you think I should interview, definitely reach out to me. I would appreciate a like, a share, a comment, and we will see you guys next time on the Build a Mind podcast.
See ya.
Thanks, Sean.